national liberation struggles, I think the obvious challenge for anarchists when it comes to approaching national liberation struggles is that, by definition, anarchists are against the nation state. As a result, I think the problem then with the discussion, especially nowadays, is that people feel like they have to pick one side. It's either that you can't support national liberation struggles because they imply struggling for a nation state, which is against anarchism. So, by definition, that's a kind of political ambition that you cannot support. On the other hand, you might focus on the aspect of anti-oppression, anti-colonialism, anti-imperialism, which, as an anarchist who is struggling against all forms of oppression, seems like a cause that you'd obviously support. I think what's unfortunate sometimes is that people, as I said, pick one side and then argue very hard for their position and kind of dismiss the other as either reactionary, or I don't know what terms people like to use in those contexts, because I think what at the end of the day one has to do is look at each specific case, look at who the actors in those struggles are, what the historical circumstances are, and then I guess take a position as an anarchist, or if you will, a human being, and see what in the broad context of progressive politics of liberation seems appropriate. Whether you think that this particular movement, at least in the long run, might make a contribution to basically a better world, meaning a world of more justice and equality, or whether it might strengthen concepts like, for example, very strong nationalistic notions or whatnot that might be counterproductive to that aim. And I think it's impossible to say that each national liberation struggle does one or the other. I mean, the movements that have been labeled as national liberation struggles range from indigenous struggles to the Palestine struggle to the Irish struggle, and even though there are possibly some structural similarities, there are also enormous differences in, as I said before, in the actors, the historical circumstances, the specific situation, the means of struggle, also the people you are struggling against. So I think you just have to look at each specific case, and even specific struggles change over time. I mean, if you use very general terms like the Palestinian resistance or the Palestinian struggle, that was a different struggle in the 1970s than it is today. And so maybe your position in relation to that struggle might change as well, depending on those changes. But I don't think there is a general answer as to which stand anarchists have to take in relation to national liberation struggles. It's a very broad and vague term, and you have to find your specific answers at each given time and place.